Hello, welcome to the Emperor's Armory YouTube channel. So this video that I'm producing is it's a complement to the demo video that I did. You can go check that out on the channel. It's about a map editor slash map generator which I produced. I don't really expect other people to use it. It's hyper specific and it's not very good. There's like a million other map editor tools that you could go use, any of which would work way better. But the thing is, I made it myself from scratch, like every line of code myself. So I have quite a lot of pride over what I've produced here. It's my little baby, and I'm very, well, maybe not pleased with it, but I like it a lot. So yeah, I'm just kind of like sharing my thing. But anyway, this is a tutorial about how to use it, whereas the other video is more like a demo about actually what the tool is and about what the whole project is. This is phase one. Phase 2 and 3 are covered more in the other video. But this video is just a deep dive onto how to actually use the tool in case by random chance that someone actually wants to use it. If you do want to use it, as I'll show you in the video, in the tutorial, there's quite a few little flaws and little gotchas and stuff that's not quite finished, but I'll cover that in the video. Anyway, so let's dive in. It's quite a long tutorial, but it's a really feature-rich little map editor generator thing, so there's quite a lot to it. Anyway, let's jump in. Okay, so here is the thing that I've built. I've called it ultimate wave function collapse generator, ultimate WFC generator. It has gone way beyond the point of being a WFC generator. It was originally just supposed to be just a little experiment of this formula and see what I could do with it. I thought Oscar Stahlborg's Townscaper was really cool, and I thought, well, let's use that formula and try to do something else with it. And unfortunately, well, I did do that, but I did a really simple implementation of WFC, but then there's also a ton of additional features that I didn't really intend to do originally. And you can see that there's some options like the save options, population options. There's a few other options in here, like power lines, train lines. Some of these are grayed out because as I was building it, I started to realize that I was getting way off track and building in a whole bunch of different things that don't really work for what I'm going to do next. And so just spending time and energy on things that I may end up either not using or having to undo later. And even in the case of like the save options, I don't know what the core data structure of the thing that I'm going to build next, this game that I'm going to build next. I don't know what the core data structure is going to be. So I don't know what I'm going to export or how to save this. So I've just left it blank. So it's just trying to be pragmatic and just try and use my time as efficiently as possible because it was only supposed to be maybe 10 days or 2 weeks. Well, it's now like 11 weeks and it's feature rich and I like it, but it's I need to draw a line somewhere. So there's a couple of things in here that don't really work. Anyway, so let's look at what does work. So here we've got the build tools and you can see I can open and close the build tools. And you'll also notice that I didn't use the mouse. You can use the mouse if you want to. You can click on this. You can open and close it using the mouse. You can select options using the mouse. It is a standard set of buttons. But you'll see my mouse is over here. And I closed the menu and opened the menu. And I selected build options. And I selected buildings, power station. You can see I've selected all of these things while the mouse is over here. And the reason why is because this is strongly connected to hotkeys. I find that, so it's inspired by Age of Empires 2 and a couple of other things. Cannon Fodder from 1993, that's kind of what the next game is sort of going to be like. And I found that of all of the RTS games, that Age of Empires absolutely has the best menu. And how good the menu is or how bad the menu is, like Command and Conquer, Star Wars Empire at War, their build menus are atrocious. They're so bad. I love those games, but their menu is so bad. And how you interface with the menu is so bad that it just really wrecks quite a lot of the gameplay. So how I interact with this is, yes, you can use the buttons and come over and click, but I don't recommend doing that. Instead, what I recommend is hit the options key and then come and look at hotkeys. And you can see here we've got 4 columns and 3 rows, and they map to 4 columns and 3 rows on the keyboard. And so when you press one of the buttons on the keyboard, you're pressing one of these over here, and they're nested with multiple layers. So if you're familiar with Age of Empires 2, when you select a villager or you select a soldier or something, the menus are quite often nested. Like if you select a villager, you get things like buildings, different stances, different actions that they can do. And they nest inside of each other. So if we come back over here, if we press the back button a few times, this is the main menu. If I use my finger and press the Q button for the hotkey on the build options, that takes me into one branch of the build options. And then in this branch, if I select the buildings option, Q again, that takes me into the buildings set of options. And then I can finally, this is now a set of leaf options. So I can select a leaf option, which in this case is power station. And here I now have access to the power station. So it's a build menu, but it's a nested build menu. If you've never used this before, it might take a little bit of like getting used to, but it's a really super efficient way of stacking a huge number of options inside a very small, well-contained interface, and you can interact with it really quickly. So yeah, I think of all of the RTS games or all of the sort of isometric games with a huge amount of options, building games and stuff, this Age of Empires 2 Ensemble Studios, they did an excellent job of this. I know I'm kind of sucking up a little bit, but to be honest, I thought that like forever. So like, yeah, it's just a genuinely really good way to do it. So what is it they say? Flattery... imitation is the highest form of flattery. So I've been inspired by those guys and I've basically just copied what they did, with a few exceptions, of course. Anyway, okay, so here is the build menu. And so in the main menu, this is kind of like the best way to describe what the app actually does. It's partially a map editor with the build options, but it's also partially a map generator. In the case of Oscar Stahlborg, what he did is that the generating and the editing is really closely integrated. And I kind of didn't really want to do that. I wanted them to be a bit more separated out from each other. So here we've got the build options and you can see all the different things we've got in here, but we've also got the generate options, and even these are a bit separated out as well. So when you want to generate the map automatically, you've got the generate options. But when you want to come in and explicitly put down, I want a power station to be exactly here, or no, I made a mistake, whoops, I get rid of that. Or you can say, oh no, I don't want it here. Then you can come in and you can manually alter the way the map looks by hand, manually. Okay, so that's the main separation. Those are the two main features of this thing that I built. There's the editing aspect, which is build menus, and then the generate options. We'll go into the build menus, build options first, because ideally what you do is you place down like a general outline of what you want, and then come back and do generate options and generate some of the map, and then hop back and forth between some manual and some automation. And then between the two of them, then you would end up with a slightly, well, potentially more efficient map design than what you would do if you just did just one or the other. So, okay, let's jump into build menus. I think this is where I've started every time when I use this. So this is kind of what I would recommend. Here we have buildings. I should say, so because the idea originally was just wave function collapse, and I thought it'd take between 10 and 14 days, and then it kind of escalated and got out of hand, and then I had to strictly like cut down the stuff I was doing. There's quite a lot of additional features built in. Like for an example, this is a power station, and this is an apartment block, and these buildings, they actually have some utility built into them in software, in the code. And so like a building outputs people and inputs power, and this outputs power and inputs people and I suppose like oil or something, or coal or something, can't remember. But yeah, there is an actual bit of utility. But once I started to realize that I was kind of spending a lot of time building a lot of features that I might not use, I had to let a lot of those features go. So they're sort of in there, but for the most part, these are just sprites. Like you're mostly just building a map that looks like something, but maybe doesn't actually do anything. So I wouldn't worry too much. Like if you put like 2 power plants, 3, 4, 5 power plants right next to each other, if you think, well, that kind of looks dumb, like maybe I shouldn't do that, maybe it impacts negatively somehow. No, it doesn't. It's just visually how it looks. I don't think that visually looks good, but there's no like connectivity in here. It's not, this isn't a game. This is more like a a developer tool rather than a game itself. So you can do this if you want to, or you could put down power stations that are more spaced out between each other. And then if I ever come back and build, I might come back and build the power lines, then you'd hook them up using power lines. But I haven't built that in right now. But anyway, you get the idea. So although you're seeing things like power stations, you've got things like forests and rivers and whatever, they don't actually do anything. Same as the roads. The roads, although the roads look like they connect, and actually the roads are the single most connected thing. We'll get onto that later, but yeah, the roads actually do connect up, but there's no cars. I was thinking it would be cool to put in a population to see how the population might move around the map, but I just realized that this doesn't fit the thing that I'm going to build next. So if I build this out, this is just a feature that I'm unlikely to use. So it's basically a waste of time. So I just left it. Anyway, okay, so here we've got buildings. So I've placed down a couple of buildings. You can see those. You can see roads as well. I'll place some roads over here. On roads, there's a thing that I should have done more clearly on buildings, but you know, this is kind of finished, but I'll end up coming back and finishing more of the generator of this map editor tool, this this thing that I built. I'll have to come back and finish more of it once I know what the next game is and how it starts shaping up. So there's some things that are in here but could do with a bit of work, but I just feel like I just need to move on because I could spend all day or spend absolutely ages polishing it and polishing features that might not get used. And one of the features that's in here is this building here is not really visual, unfortunately, but it actually has a footprint of roads that look like this. And roads have actual sockets on them. So you can see that the cross section has, this is north, east, south, and west. And in the case of a cross road, it's got 4 sockets one on each side. And actually so does an apartment block. I think power stations have only a road socket to their south, but this is one of those things that I didn't really build out the functionality because I just needed to just like build it and move on as quick as possible. So it's not really visible here, but yeah, buildings do have road sockets, but they're just not really visible, unfortunately. But anyway, okay, so back to roads. On roads, they are visible. So you can see here's a T section of a road, and it's got sockets to the east, south, and west. So because you can see that a T section has road sockets on some sides, but not on another, that means that you may want to put, like say you put in a T section over here, and you're thinking, well, you know, actually I want this T section to connect to the road above it. Well, how can I do that? Well, actually you can rotate it. And how you rotate is, if I'll show you the hotkey for this. Here's the hotkeys. So you can see that the shift and mouse wheel rotate direction tiles. So some tiles have a direction, like for example, roads and rivers. We'll get onto rivers in a bit. But here's the shift key. You can click the shift key and it will rotate, but you can also use the mouse wheel. The shift key, just because my mouse wheel is a bit overly sensitive, it can be a bit difficult to select an exact tile direction. So shift key can be helpful for that. But the shift key, unlike, or the mouse wheel only, sorry, the mouse wheel can rotate in both directions. So here is a T section. You can rotate clockwise with the mouse wheel, and you can also rotate counterclockwise, anti-clockwise with the mouse wheel. But in the case of the shift key, it only rotates clockwise. Anyway, so that's how you rotate roads. I think that's similar to Age of Empires default setting when you place down a building, that you can rotate using the shift key. I think you can change the hotkeys in AoE too, but you can't in this anyways. So yeah, there we go. There's some roads set down. So you get it. So you would basically want to like connect up a bunch of roads in a way that kind of looks sensible, bearing in mind that this doesn't actually do anything right now. The roads don't have any real functionality, but you would put them down in a way that kind of looks sensible, which that doesn't make sense. I'll get rid of that one. Okay. Okay, so there's roads. I'll show you forests. Forests don't do anything, but the reason why I've added them in is because I'm saying the thing that I'm going to build next. Well, the thing that I'm going to build next requires barriers, and roads are, forests are a good barrier. So hence why I've built in forests, even though in this, they just look nice. I think they look nice, but they don't actually have any functionality. They've got no sockets. They don't connect to something. They don't disconnect. They just look, they're just there. But once a map is built and then the map is being used in the next game, or the actual game that I'm going to build out of this, the forests will act as a type of a barrier. Maybe you can cut through it, maybe not. I'm not sure, but yeah, there'll be some kind of a barrier. So there's forests, trees. That would be the idea, that you could place a couple of individual trees on any other kind of a tile that you've got, but I didn't build it out because it just isn't necessary. It's just overkill. So, okay, we'll move on to landscape. So landscape is the point where I realized how insanely complicated this was getting it and how I need to cut my losses and move on as quick as possible. So landscape has a couple of things in it, but it's not like, well, I mean, it's moderately developed, but anyway, I'll show you what it is. So here we've got, in the case of roads are 2-lane roads. I know it's not really drawn in. I've not drawn the good sprites for it, but you can see that roads don't have a direction because you can go in both directions with a road. It's dual carriageway. But in the case of rivers, for the next game that I'm going to build, it's going to be kind of inspired by Cannon Fodder from 1993 from Sensible Software. And their rivers do actually have a flow to them. So when a character jumps into a river, there is flow. And so in the case of this, when you're selecting a river, it indicates what the flow is. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a feature that I could have built, but I just cut it out because I'm just like pushing for time. But the feature is that once you've placed a river, it doesn't indicate which way the river is going anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, you can see that the rivers, when you're going to place the river down, there's a little bit of some direction indication just to tell you what's going on. Let's select a different section. Nope, wrong one. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, these rivers have a flow to them. And then also because the game is inspired by, or is going to be inspired by Cannon Fodder, it makes sense also to have, where is it? Place this down. Ugh, it's slow. I can't remember. There we go. Yeah, it makes sense also to have lakes. So here is a river which is flowing into a lake, and now we go back a couple of steps. Here is the middle of a lake, and place that down, and then you can place down sections of a lake bank going around it. And again, if you want to, if you here you've got a piece of a lake bank which is selected, you can hit shift and it rotates it, and you can hit shift again a couple of times and it rotates it. And what you'll notice here is that every single time that I've placed a tile down, I'll click to place it. There it's placed. Now the mouse has become unselected and there is no current tile has been selected. Well, that gets pretty annoying pretty quick once you're like, you know, really building this thing out and going at pace. Having to come back over here, having to hit a bunch of hotkeys to keep placing these every single time gets really old really quick. So I'll just show you what this is. If you come into the options menu, you can see in the hotkeys, and we've got spacebar, hold to activate paint mode. So what you do is when you're building something over here, if you don't want to have to keep coming over here and selecting and deselecting it, and every time you place a piece, it gets deselected. If you don't want to do that, but you want instead to place a piece, click it, and it's now placed, but you've still got the option, something is still selected. And what you do is hold the spacebar, and effectively it allows you to just paint, 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 and then you can just keep placing other pieces and it doesn't deselect it every single time you place a piece. It was just one of those like nice little quality things that just speeds the whole thing up a little bit. So here's the lake sections. If I'm not holding the spacebar, if I click it, it deselects once I've placed it. Now I'll select it again, but now I'll hold the spacebar. I've entered paint mode, paint, paint, and it just maintains the selection in between. And now I'll let go of the spacebar and it's still selected, but this time when I place it, it's now deselected. So there you go. Okay, just place these two. There we go. And, oops. Okay, so there's a little lake that I've produced. You can see, whoops, click the wrong hotkey there. Okay, so I use the destroy and I'll get rid of this one over here. And so you can see that, again, like I was saying with roads, that there's an orientation. So you can see here, there's an orientation with a lake. So the river on this side was coming down from the north to the south. And here this orientation is not showing that. This would mean coming from the east to the west to the lake. But I would like the lake to flow out of this river. So I'll hit rotate a couple of times. And here now you can see this is the correct orientation. So here Unfortunately, the arrow was removed when I pressed that, but the lake is coming from the north to the south into the lake, and then now the lake is flowing from the west to the east, and then you can come back and place what would that be? I think that'd be anti-clockwise. Yeah, there you go. You can place a couple of lake sections or a couple of river sections that are coming off of the lake. There you go. Yeah, there you go. So that's how the lakes work. What made me realize that the generate aspect of this was getting really hyper complicated was that I didn't show you what I'll just briefly, sorry to interrupt, but I'll just briefly show you what bridges look like. So here is a bridge here, which is part road, part lake, or part river. And what I start to realize is that when you've got something like a road on this side and a lake on this side and a river, a lake bank here and a lake bank here, that's like 16, or it's more than 16 potential different options that this tile could possibly be. And I started to realize that this is just getting wildly complicated, way more complicated than what I personally need it for. So I should stop with a generator and just build this stuff in manually, because manually it's quite quick and I don't need a custom map for every single map that I'm going to build. So I don't need to generate a map on the fly every single new match, every single new game in the game that I'm going to make. So it's just a lot quicker to just come in and do it manually. I guess, like, if you want to see what a really good map generator looks like, I would recommend Age of Empires 2. Their the way they generate maps, procedurally generated, is really rich. It's a really there's a lot of layers to what they're doing, and it creates really cool maps with a lot of character in the map. This doesn't even come close, but it's, I'm one guy versus them, who are a very large, very well-funded team, which is, I can't compete with that. Not that I'm trying to compete, but anyways. So yeah, it was the river bank, or sorry, the lake bank, that made me realize just how complex this potentially could get. So I thought, no, let's just cut my losses. Let's not keep trying to produce something that is like really complex and rich. Instead, let's just go for a more manual approach. Okay, so speaking of manual versus automatic, so all what I've pretty much shown you up till now is inside the build menu, placing down trees, placing buildings, rivers, bridges, lakes, lake banks, all that kind of thing. That's all been done manually. So now let's switch over to the automated section, which is the generate options. You can see in here we've got the generate, and I'll click on this, and what I found originally is that it was a bit annoying. I'd accidentally click generate and the whole map would just get generated in like one single sweep, even when I didn't intend it. So I just put in a last minute check, generate the whole map. And in this case, no, don't generate the whole map. But yeah, it's just that last minute check. Same with the undo button. The undo button could undo all the work that you've done, which is quite frustrating. So I've put in another checkbox over here. However, so we'll come back to generate in just a moment. But here's a visualize process. So the whole point of all of this originally was the wave function collapse. And the reason why I built an isometric map with a mini map and like some other things, this is basically state tracking all in here. This is really quite a complicated thing that was maybe about 3 weeks to build this and this. And the reason why I went to all that effort is because I wanted to really visualize wave function collapse as it happens. So I'll just hit the use the hotkey for a step forward. So here's the first step forward option, and there's a whole bunch of things like entropy. It's looking for the lowest entropy and a couple of other things and superposition options, etc. There's a lot of stuff going on under the hood, but I wanted an easy, nice visual way to see the wave function collapse happening as it happens. So this is what the visualize process is about. In the visualize process, it's identical to what's happening with the generate process. There's literally nothing different between the two, except that in the visualize, you get a lot more control over, do I want the whole thing, do I want it to just run automatically, or do I want to personally step through one click at a time, one neighbor click, click, let's go to the next one, click, 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 and you can see it just steps through every single step manually, and you can do that with step through. I'll click through them quickly. But you can see this is me manually clicking through it. And yeah, it's generating. And so that generate that it's doing, it's deciding which cell goes where, or which road goes where. That's identical to when you press play, and it's identical to when you press generate, with the exception that you're manually getting to control what speed it moves at. So now let's look at what the play button does. So I'll click play. And it's doing the exact same thing, except it's now effectively like clicking generate step for you rapidly. And when you're in the play mode, it doesn't update this because that was just a bit laggy, so it just stays blank. But if I hit pause, just hit pause, and it will update this once you hit pause. So you can see that the current cell that we're on is X10, Y31, and the current neighbor that we're looking at is X9, Y31. And here are the superposition options available for the red tile, the current cell. And these look a bit like buttons, and the idea at one point maybe was to actually make them buttons so you could click one, but there's a couple of problems with that. So I thought instead of making them buttons, let's just make them a display. So you can't click on these, they don't do anything, but it does give you information, which is really what the whole thing originally was about. And it got a bit out of control, but it was supposed to just be wave function collapse, but a really visual version of the process of wave function collapse. Hence why there's this a bit of a display over here telling you, giving you more fine-grained detail about what's actually happening under the hood. Okay, so that was the play button, and then the pause button to pause it. And the great thing about the play and the pause button versus generate is good because it happens very quickly, but the play and pause button allows you to interrupt in between. So there was a couple of road sections were put down, and if you say, well, okay, I like those road sections, but I don't like the fact that the river just goes directly into a road section. So let's manually come in. I interrupted the process, and now let's come in instead, place down, I don't know, like that. I'm not doing this in a way that makes any sense, but let's just say a lake right there. That doesn't make sense, but let's just say, okay, so you can interrupt it. Well, when you're using the, just go back. When you're doing the generation, but you're doing the generation with the visualization part of it, and you're controlling the state step by step, then you have the power to interrupt it while it's going. I think it took a couple of steps back. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, you can interrupt it while it goes, which is complete. And that's the same with the play button as well. You can press pause, and then you can come in and interrupt it and build in a couple of pieces. If you saw it was doing something that you didn't really like, you can interrupt it. But when you click the generate button, it just it doesn't nuke. I mean, I suppose it nukes the whole map in terms of like it builds the whole map rapidly, and there is no interrupt in the generate. Same with the undo, it just deletes the entire map and nukes the whole map, and you don't get any control over it. But the visualize process, it takes it either literally step by step by step, or it will take it at the speed that you want. And also about the speed button, I think this doesn't show up on the video recording. No, it doesn't show up on the screen capture. But if you click on this yourself, I've now got speed 5. I can set to speed 5. So here's what speed 5 looks like. That's quite fast. Still not as fast as the generate, but it's still quite fast. And you can interrupt this as well because it's just the play button. Then you say, well, that was too fast. I don't want that. So let's set it, say, back to the original speed, which was speed 1. There's 5 different options. I know you guys can't see this on the video, but it's there if you use this in real life. So there we go. We'll go back to play, and yeah, you can see it again, and it's going through. And again, it's not, the state is being recorded as it's happening, but it's not displaying because I found that was quite laggy and it wasn't very helpful. So I just left it out. But then if we pause it, the whole thing gets reported on again, what's actually happening. It becomes visual, and then you can go back to stepping forward step by step if you want to. It really slows down the entire process and just lets you visualize it as it happens. Okay, so so that's what the visualize aspect is like. Now let's jump into to nuke the map with roads. So click generate. Do you want to generate the whole map? Yes, generate. Bang. And this is running slowly because I've got OBS Studio and a couple of other things running in the background to record this video. But when I do this, like without anything else running and it's just the thing, and if you do this yourself, this will probably zip through this like super quick. Almost like too quick to record, really, or too quick to see. But that's okay. That's kind of the point of the generate button versus the visualize process button. So as you can see, there's only roads that have been placed down, but you can also see on the minimap that the entire area has been produced at once. Bang, just a single sweep across it. No interruptions, no anything. And you can see that, yeah, the roads kind of make a bit of sense. There's some sort of connectivity between them, but they're also not really sensible. Like, you like got a T section over here. This doesn't join up. These don't join up. And part of that is, again, I was saying previously that when I built the river section, I started to realize just how exceptionally complicated the rules can get, and the number of different interactions that you can get, and the fact that the interactions are not always like, you're not always just trying to match one socket to another. Sometimes there's additional sets of rules about why one socket might connect under one set of circumstances, but in a different set of circumstances they wouldn't connect. And so really all of that comes under the C, the collapse aspect of wave function collapse. And hence why I realized, yeah, I need to like not try and really build a proper map generator. Hence why there's the manual build options, because the automated aspect of this is actually like astoundingly complex, and trying to really build out the full automated aspect is a lot more energy than what I'm willing to put in right now, because this is just a tool and it's not an actual game, and I want to actually just get on and actually build the game. So hence why, yeah, I basically curtailed a nice set of rules which creates connectivity. I was thinking I could use A star to join up. Like, you could have, say, an apartment block where people come out of, and power stations where people need to go into. So I could use A star to pathfind between them, and then use A star to place down tiles. So there's a whole bunch, and then that's obviously not wave function collapse, that's A star pathfinding. But I started to realize that there's a lot of additional rules that would really be required to make the map generator look cool, but that's just overkill. I need to like wrap this up and move on. So I curtailed the proper generating, hence why it looks a bit monotonous and it looks a bit flat, and it's it's not very good, to be honest. But it's fine for what I need it for, because what you can do is, yeah, a lot of this stuff doesn't really make sense. So what I can do is come in. This could be a little cul-de-sac, that could make sense, but this over here, that doesn't make sense. This bit over here, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense, and you can come in manually and delete it, and that's still definitely faster than building the whole thing yourself. So let's put like an apartment block here, and if we're going to have an apartment block there, let's connect that up with a road. Anyway, you get the idea that you can use the automation to build out most of it, and then yourself come back and manually build in some of the bits that make a bit more sense. Yeah, put a train station next to the apartment block, blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. Let's make it nice. Let's put in a little bit of forest over here. Yeah, there you go. So you get the idea. You can put in stuff manually, but the roads are generated automatically. All right, so that was the tutorial for the map editor slash map generator, the ultimate wave function collapse generator. I hope it was interesting. I'm not really sure why it would have relevance to what anyone else is doing. There's some interesting ideas in there, and I've personally explored them in the process of making it to a really deep level, and learned a lot by doing it. But I think maybe more of the value of this particular project that I've built has been in the learning as opposed to like the execution. But well, I don't know. I like it, so that's good enough for me. Anyway, so yeah, thank you for watching this. If you want to use this and you're noticing, like, I know that there's a couple of little quirks about stuff like screen resolution's not quite right. I know that I got some feedback about the mouse on the border and the way it scrolls. Some of these things would be a really big problem to fix, and I wouldn't be up for fixing them, but there's some of them would be kind of trivial to fix. I just haven't bothered because I don't really expect anyone else actually to use this stuff. So if you are actually trying to use it and you're like, oh, I would use this a lot, but this little thing is slightly off, send me a message, because I would fix it if I genuinely thought someone else was going to use it, but I don't really think that's going to happen. So I'm just kind of like, well, it works really well for me, so that's enough. Anyways, all right, this video is long enough, so thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I would recommend, like, maybe if you've seen this but you haven't seen the demo, go watch the demo video. It's quite a lot shorter than this one, and it talks about the whole project in general, phase 1, 2, and 3, and just kind of explains like where this is going, where it came from, etc. So, all right, thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.